Hi everyone, it's Stephanie here with a new card making video tutorial. In today's video, we are going to be creating a geometric design using the Stitched Hexagon stacks, and I'm going to be using the smallest die in this set, and I'm going to create kind of a pattern on the background here, this panel of white cardstock. So I pulled out a bunch of distress inks here. You can see that I have them all in rainbow color order, and I'm going to use them all to add color to this panel. I want to die cut all of the hexagons from one panel of cardstock, and I want to create kind of a rainbow look when we piece them back together onto our finished card. So I'm using an ink blending tool, and I'm just going to start with my purple color of distress ink, which is Wilted Violet, and I'm going to start applying this color to the panel. Now I am going to speed this up just so we can kind of get through this a little bit quicker, but all I'm doing is taking each of the colors and going in order and kind of using each of the blending tools to blend the colors together. I don't want to have a really harsh line between each color. I want them to be really blended out so that it kind of looks like a seamless transition between each color. So what I like to do is I like to lay down the initial color, go in with the next color, and then kind of rotate back and forth between the two ink blending tools, and that really helps to blend those colors together. I did my purple, my blue, my green, and my yellow, and now I'm going in with abandoned coral, which is what I like to use for my orange in the rainbow. And then I'm going to finish it off with picked raspberry, which is what I like to use in place of the red color of the rainbow. And then once I have that done, we have our entire panel completely covered, and now I can cut out my hexagons from this panel. Before I do any of the die cutting, I am going to distress it a bit with some water, so I'm just going to add the water to my hand and kind of flick it over top of that panel. And then once I have let it sit there for a couple of seconds, I'm going to take a paper towel and kind of dab it over top. This is going to remove some of that ink and give us a little bit of a distressed look on the finished panel. So now we can start die cutting the hexagons, and I'm going to just kind of move it around on the panel in my die cutting machine until I've pretty much cut out the entire panel worth of hexagons. So I was able to cut out 12 hexagons from the panel, and now I'm going to use all of these and I'm going to add them to another plain white card panel, but I'm going to kind of space them apart so we can see a little bit of that white panel underneath. So before I actually adhere any of them to the panel, I do want to lay them out just to kind of get an idea of what kind of design I want to create. I am trying to keep them in rainbow order though, so I am starting with the purple up near the top left, and I'm going to kind of work my way down towards the pink at the very bottom. And I'm just kind of twisting and turning all of the different hexagon pieces to kind of get those colors to match up as I add them to the panel. And you can recreate this design with different shapes. It doesn't have to be hexagons. You can do this with circles or squares or rectangles, pretty much any shape that you want. It's just a really fun way to create a pattern that kind of has a geometric look. I really like the hexagons just because they piece together really nicely, and I love the different look that you can get with adding them on there and kind of positioning them so that they start near the top and kind of go towards the bottom of the card. I also really love to leave a little bit of white space in between the shapes. So you can see there I have a hexagon shape that I'm not actually going to put a hexagon into. I'm going to leave that white so that we can add our sentiment as well. So once I'm happy with the design, I'm going to go ahead and start to adhere everything to the card. And what I'm doing is just adding my tape runner adhesive directly onto the hexagon pieces and just lifting them up one by one and putting them back onto the panel. This just helps to keep everything in place so I know where I had positioned them when I laid out the design. For a couple of the squares, I also decided to use some foam adhesive just to add a little bit of dimension to the card. I'm using the thin 3D foam squares, so they're not super bulky, but it does add a little bit of dimension to some of these little hexagons that we're adding onto the card base. So as I was assembling this card, I thought that this was actually going to be the way this panel was going to be positioned on the card front. I thought I would have the purple up at the top and then the pink at the bottom, but you're going to see when I start to assemble this that I changed my mind and actually flipped this upside down so that I could put the sentiment into that open area that we created. Once I have all of the hexagons on here, I'm going to trim off the excess so we don't have any hanging over the side. And now you can see this really cool geometric pattern that we created on our panel. And not only do we have this fun design, but we also have the rainbow color that we added by doing the distress ink on the panel first. So now I'm just turning the panel, trying to decide how I want to position it on the card. A design like this will work pretty much any direction. You could do a vertical or a horizontal card, and you could have the top be either side of this pattern. I decided, like I mentioned earlier, to put the purple near the bottom, and I'm going to put a sentiment strip right into that open area. I'm using the Anything But Basic Friendship stamp set to add a sentiment to this sentiment banner. This was cut out with the hearts in a row horizontal from black licorice cardstock. And I'm stamping the sentiment with Versamark ink, which is a clear sticky ink, so that I can heat emboss the sentiment with white embossing powder. Anytime I'm creating a design with a lot of color, I love to add the black and white sentiment strip just because I think it really helps to stand out on the card and provides a little bit of extra added contrast. So I went ahead and heat set this, and you can see how nicely it fits into that open area. I love how it kind of worked out and that fits into that space. And I'm just going to add this flat to the card, so I just put some liquid glue on the back of that, and I'm using the grid mat on my work surface to line that up, and then I'm going to trim off the excess with my scissors. I did trim the panel slightly smaller than an A2 size card, so it measures 4 inches by 5 1/4, and I'm adding this to an A2 size card base, which is a Limelight piece of cardstock, and you can see we get that nice border around the outside edge. The last thing I'm going to do is just add some clear sequins kind of scattered around that sentiment strip just for a little bit of added dimension. I really love creating cards like this where we take one basic shape and create the whole design with just that one single die. I hope today's video gave you some ideas on ways that you can use your basic shapes in your card making designs, and as always, I appreciate you being here and spending some time with me on the MFT YouTube channel. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you in another video soon.